before this life.
His name is Nathan, 6 years old. Quiet, thoughtful, with dark eyes that seem to look inward as much as outward. A child who prefers books to playgrounds, silence to noise. His parents, Jennifer and Marcus, raised him in suburban Boston, a thoroughly modern American household. No particular religious affiliation, no connection to India or Hinduism or ancient languages, which is why what happened one Tuesday night in October made no sense whatsoever. Nathan woke from a dream and began to speak. Not English, not the simple vocabulary of a 6-year-old stumbling through nighttime confusion, but something else entirely. Fluid, confident, complex, words that sounded ancient, syllables that rose and fell with a rhythm Jennifer had never heard before. Marcus grabbed his phone, started recording. He didn't know what he was capturing, only that it seemed important, that something extraordinary was happening in their son's bedroom at 2 a.m. Nathan spoke for 3 minutes. His eyes were open, but distant, as if seeing something far away. Then he stopped, blinked, looked at his parents with confusion. "Why are you staring at me?" he asked in English. "Nathan, what were you just saying?" Jennifer asked carefully. "Saying?" "I was sleeping. You were speaking in another language." Nathan's brow furrowed. "I was?" The next morning, Marcus played the recording back. Nathan listened, his small face growing pale. "That's not me," he whispered. "That's Arjun." "Who's Arjun?" Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "Me. Before. When I lived in the monastery." Jennifer and Marcus exchanged glances. Nathan had never mentioned a monastery before, had never shown any interest in religion or spirituality beyond the typical curiosity of childhood. "What monastery?" Marcus asked gently. "In the mountains, in India, where we studied the sacred texts, where I was a scholar." The words came out matter of fact, as if Nathan were describing his school or his neighborhood. Not a life in ancient India, not a monastery in mountains he'd never seen. Over the next several weeks, it happened again and again. Nathan would fall asleep, speaking English, and wake speaking something else, sometimes in dreams. Sometimes in the quiet moments before sleep, as if memory were bubbling up from some deep place within him. Jennifer began researching, late nights on her laptop, diving into linguistics websites, language forums, trying to identify what her son was speaking. She found it: Sanskrit, classical Sanskrit, a language that hasn't been spoken conversationally for over 1,000 years. A language used now only by scholars studying ancient Hindu and Buddhist texts. A language her 6-year-old son couldn't possibly know. She uploaded the recording to a forum for Sanskrit scholars, asked if anyone could identify the language, translate what was being said. The response came within hours. This is indeed Sanskrit, classical, not Vedic. The pronunciation is remarkably accurate. The grammar is correct. The speaker appears to be reciting a passage from the Bhagavad Gita, followed by what sounds like personal commentary on the text. "Where did you record this?" Jennifer's hands trembled as she typed her response. "My 6-year-old son, speaking in his sleep." There was a long pause before the next message arrived. "I would very much like to meet your son." Quote, end quote. Dr. Priya Sharma was a professor of Sanskrit and Indian philosophy at Harvard. She had spent 30 years studying ancient texts, teaching students the complexities of a language most people had never heard of. When Jennifer explained the situation, Dr. Sharma's first instinct was skepticism. Children don't spontaneously speak dead languages. It wasn't possible, but she agreed to listen to the recordings, to make her own assessment. She came to their home 3 days later, a small recording device in her bag, a notebook filled with Sanskrit passages for reference. She spoke to Nathan in English first, asked about school, about his favorite subjects, about what he liked to do. Nathan was shy but polite, a normal 6-year-old in every visible way. Then Dr. Sharma did something unexpected. She switched to Sanskrit, spoke a simple greeting, asking Nathan his name, asking how he was feeling. Nathan's eyes widened. And without hesitation, he responded. In Sanskrit. Fluent, natural, conversational Sanskrit. Dr. Sharma's face went pale. She asked another question, more complex this time, about a specific philosophical concept from ancient Hindu texts. Nathan answered. Not just answered, but elaborated. Discussed different interpretations. Referenced texts by name that Dr. Sharma knew by heart, but that Nathan couldn't have encountered anywhere. The conversation continued for 10 minutes. Dr. Sharma asking increasingly difficult questions. Nathan responding with knowledge that shouldn't exist in a child who had never studied the language, the culture, the philosophy. When it ended, Dr. Sharma sat in silence for a long moment. Then she turned to Jennifer and Marcus. Your son speaks Sanskrit. Not just speaks it. He thinks in it. He knows texts that most Sanskrit scholars have never read. He understands philosophical concepts that take graduate students years to grasp. This shouldn't be possible, but it is happening, Jennifer said quietly. Yes, it is happening, and I don't know how to explain it. Nathan looked at Dr. Sharma with those ancient eyes. I can explain it, he said softly. I told you, I'm Arjun. I studied these texts for most of my life, in the monastery, in the mountains, before I died, before I became Nathan. Dr. Sharma returned the next week with colleagues, linguists, researchers in childhood development, a specialist in rare cases of xenoglossy, the phenomenon of speaking languages one has never learned. They tested Nathan systematically, showed him Sanskrit texts, and asked him to read them aloud. He did, with perfect pronunciation and understanding, gave him complex grammatical structures to parse. He explained them clearly, using terminology he couldn't have learned. One researcher, Dr. Michael Torres, played a recording of Vedic chanting, ancient religious texts, sung in a style that predated classical Sanskrit by centuries. Nathan listened, eyes closed. When it ended, he said quietly, That's wrong. The intonation is off. It should rise on the third syllable, not the second. Master Devendra taught us the proper way. Dr. Torres felt a chill. Master Devendra. Nathan said it as if speaking of a real person, a teacher he had known. Who was Master Devendra? Dr. Torres asked carefully. My teacher. At the monastery. He was very old. He knew all the texts by memory. He said I was his best student. Nathan's voice was wistful, sad. I miss him. I miss all of them. The researchers compiled their findings. Nathan demonstrated fluency in a language he had never been taught. He possessed knowledge of texts, philosophical concepts, and religious practices from ancient India. He described details about monastic life that aligned with historical accounts of Buddhist and Hindu monasteries from centuries past. But there was no way to verify the specifics. No records of a scholar named Arjun, no monastery that could be definitively identified from Nathan's descriptions. Just the impossible fact of the language itself, the knowledge that shouldn't exist. Dr. Sharma contacted the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. She had heard of their work with children who claimed past life memories. Perhaps they could provide context, methodology, a framework for understanding what was happening with Nathan. Dr. Emily Richardson reviewed the case files, the recordings of Nathan speaking Sanskrit, the transcripts of his conversations with Dr. Sharma, the testimony of multiple witnesses, all of whom confirmed that Nathan's knowledge was genuine and inexplicable. She traveled to Boston to meet Nathan herself. They sat together in the quiet of the family's living room. Nathan seemed comfortable with her, as if he sensed she understood that something strange and real was happening to him. Nathan, can you tell me about the monastery? Dr. Richardson asked. What did it look like? Nathan closed his eyes, remembering. It was built into the mountain. Stone buildings with red roofs. There were prayer flags everywhere. We could see the valley below and the river. In the morning, the mist would come up from the valley and we would chant as the sun rose. What did you study there? The sutras, the Gita, the commentaries of the ancient masters. We would memorize long passages, then discuss their meanings. Master Devendra would ask us questions to test our understanding. It took years to master even a single text. How old were you when you lived there? Nathan thought for a moment. I arrived when I was 7. I stayed until I died. I think I was about 40. Do you remember dying? Nathan's expression grew distant. I was sick, a fever that wouldn't break. Master Devendra stayed with me. He told me not to be afraid, that death was just a transition. That consciousness continues. He was right, because here I am, except now I'm Nathan, and I don't live in the mountains anymore. Dr. Richardson made careful notes. The description Nathan gave matched accounts of Tibetan and Nepalese monasteries from centuries past. The texts he mentioned were real. The practices he described were historically accurate. But there was something more, something that went beyond historical knowledge or linguistic ability. Nathan spoke of his life as Arjun, with a sense of loss, of longing, as if part of him still belonged to that time, that place, that life of contemplation and study. Do you want to go back? Dr. Richardson asked gently. Nathan shook his head. I can't. That life is over. Master Devendra is gone. The other monks are gone. Even the monastery might be gone now. Too much time has passed. He looked at her with eyes that seemed far older than 6. But I remember. And maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Remember, so that the knowledge doesn't disappear completely. Dr. Sharma worked with Nathan over the following months, not testing him, but engaging him as a fellow scholar. They would sit together discussing texts, debating interpretations, exploring the depths of Sanskrit literature. She was amazed by his understanding, by the way he could grasp concepts that took her years of study to comprehend, by his ability to see connections between different texts, different traditions, different schools of thought. It's as if he has decades of experience, she told Dr. Richardson during one of their consultations. I find myself learning from him, a 6-year-old child, teaching me about my own field of expertise. But Dr. Sharma also noticed something else. Nathan's knowledge was specific, detailed, but it also had limits. He knew ancient texts intimately, but he knew nothing about modern India, nothing about current Sanskrit scholarship, nothing about developments in Hindu philosophy from the last few centuries. His knowledge stopped at a certain point, as if Arjun's life had ended, and everything after that moment simply didn't exist for him. It's consistent with past life memory cases. Dr. Richardson explained. Children remember what the previous person knew, but only up to the point of death. After that, there's no more information to access. Which raised the question, if Nathan truly was Arjun reborn, when did Arjun die? And could that be verified? Dr. Sharma reached out to colleagues in India and Nepal, sent descriptions of what Nathan remembered, the location of the monastery, the text studied, the practices described. One historian, Dr. Anand Patel from Kathmandu University, recognized elements from Nathan's descriptions. There had been a monastery in the region Nathan described, in the Himalayas, near the border between Nepal and Tibet. It had been an important center of Buddhist scholarship from the 9th to the 14th centuries. Then it had been abandoned after a series of earthquakes destroyed much of the region. No detailed records survived. No lists of the monks who had lived there. Just fragmentary accounts, architectural remains, and the memory of a place where knowledge had once flourished. Could Arjun have been one of those scholars? A man who devoted his life to studying sacred texts in a remote monastery high in the mountains? There was no way to know for certain. The evidence was circumstantial, suggestive, but not definitive. What remained definitive was Nathan himself, a 6-year-old boy who spoke a dead language fluently, who possessed knowledge he couldn't have acquired through any conventional means, Who remembered a life that made sense only if consciousness could somehow persist across time? Dr. Sharma decided to test Nathan in a different way. She arranged for him to meet other Sanskrit scholars without telling them about his case beforehand. She wanted to see if they would recognize his knowledge as genuine. The first meeting was with Professor Harold Chen, a linguist specializing in ancient Indo-European languages. Dr. Sharma introduced Nathan simply as a young student interested in Sanskrit. Professor Chen smiled politely and began speaking to Nathan in simplified Sanskrit, using basic vocabulary and simple grammar structures, the kind of Sanskrit taught to beginners. Nathan responded in complex, classical Sanskrit, using advanced grammatical forms, referencing obscure texts. Professor Chen stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting from polite interest to astonishment. He switched to more complex language. Nathan kept pace effortlessly. They conversed for 20 minutes. Professor Chen asked increasingly difficult questions about verb conjugations, about subtle differences between similar terms, about interpretations of passages that scholars debated endlessly. Nathan answered every question, not just answered, but offered insights that made Professor Chen pause, consider, occasionally revise his own understanding. When the conversation ended, Professor Chen turned to Dr. Sharma. Where did this child study? Who taught him? His knowledge is extraordinary. His pronunciation is better than most of my graduate students. No one taught him, Dr. Sharma said quietly. The knowledge just appeared about 6 months ago. Professor Chen stared at Nathan. That's not possible. And yet, Dr. Sharma gestured to Nathan, who sat quietly, looking slightly uncomfortable with the attention. The second meeting was with Dr. Lakshmi Reddy, a scholar of Hindu philosophy who had spent 15 years in India studying under traditional pandits, masters of Sanskrit learning. She tested Nathan differently. Instead of conversation, she asked him to participate in a traditional form of Sanskrit debate called Vāda, a rigorous intellectual exercise where participants must defend philosophical positions using logic, textual evidence, and precise argumentation. Nathan agreed, though he seemed uncertain. I haven't done this in a long time, he said softly. Dr. Reddy presented a philosophical proposition. Nathan was to defend it using traditional methods. What followed amazed everyone in the room. Nathan constructed arguments with sophistication that belied his age. He cited texts accurately. He anticipated counter-arguments and addressed them. He moved through the debate with a confidence that suggested years of practice. Dr. Reddy pushed him harder, introduced more complex challenges. Nathan met each one, his young voice carrying arguments that would have been impressive from a seasoned scholar. When it ended, Dr. Reddy sat in silence for a long moment. Then, she spoke in Sanskrit, saying something Dr. Sharma translated later, "This child has the mind of a master. He debates like someone who has spent a lifetime in study. I don't understand it, but I recognize it." The third test came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sharma showed Nathan photographs of ancient Sanskrit manuscripts, texts preserved in museums and private collections. Some were famous, frequently studied. Others were rare, seen by only a handful of scholars. She asked Nathan if he recognized any of them. Nathan looked through the photographs carefully, paused at one. I know this text. We had a copy of this at the monastery. I copied it by hand when I was learning to write properly. It took me 3 months. Master Devendra checked every letter. The manuscript was the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, a foundational text of yoga philosophy. Rare editions existed, but they were not widely available or easily accessible. Can you tell me what this section discusses? Dr. Sharma asked, pointing to a specific passage. Nathan read it aloud, then explained the passage's meaning, the context within the larger text, and even discussed different interpretations offered by various commentators over the centuries. He spoke with the authority of someone who had lived with this text, who had memorized it, contemplated it, taught it perhaps, not the authority of a child who had read about it. but of someone for whom this text was as familiar as his own name. Dr. Richardson documented all of these sessions. She compiled testimony from multiple experts, linguists, philosophers, scholars of ancient texts. All of them confirmed the same thing. Nathan's knowledge was genuine, deep, and seemingly impossible. There were attempts at conventional explanations. Perhaps Nathan had been exposed to Sanskrit through some forgotten source. Perhaps he had a photographic memory and had absorbed information without realizing it. Perhaps this was some form of savant syndrome, allowing him to process and produce language in extraordinary ways. But none of these explanations fully accounted for what they were observing. Exposure alone doesn't create fluency. Photographic memory doesn't explain understanding of complex philosophical concepts. Savant abilities don't typically manifest as knowledge of ancient languages and religious texts. What remained was the mystery. A 6-year-old boy in Boston who spoke Sanskrit like a scholar, who remembered texts from centuries past, who described a life he shouldn't remember, in a place he'd never been, in a time long before he was born. And the words he spoke in his sleep, the first words that started everything, translated to something both beautiful and haunting. The self cannot be destroyed. The soul is eternal. What we call death is merely the shedding of one form and the taking of another. I am not this body. I am not this name. I am consciousness itself moving through time. Ancient wisdom, spoken by a child, knowledge that transcended time, space, and the boundaries of a single lifetime. As months passed, Nathan's parents watched their son navigate 2 identities. By day, he was Nathan, a first grader who liked dinosaurs and video games, who argued with his sister over toys, who struggled with math homework. But at night, or in quiet moments, he became something else. Someone else. Arjun, the scholar, the monk who had spent decades in contemplation and study. Jennifer found him one evening sitting cross-legged in his room, eyes closed, hands resting gently on his knees. He was chanting softly in Sanskrit, the same syllables repeated over and over, each repetition carrying a deep, meditative quality. "Nathan," she said quietly. He opened his eyes slowly, as if returning from somewhere far away. "I was meditating. We did this every morning at the monastery. It helps quiet the mind." "Does it help you?" Jennifer asked, sitting beside him. "Sometimes. When I feel confused. When I don't understand why I remember things I shouldn't remember. Why I know things I never learned." He looked at his mother with a vulnerability that broke her heart. "Am I Nathan or am I Arjun?" Jennifer pulled him close. "You're Nathan. You're my son. But you carry memories from before. That doesn't make you less you. It makes you more." But the question haunted Nathan. Who was he, really? Was Arjun's consciousness living through Nathan? Or was Nathan accessing memories that belonged to someone else? Where did one identity end and the other begin? Dr. Richardson explored this with Nathan gently, carefully. These questions of identity were profound and potentially troubling for a child so young. "How do you feel when you speak Sanskrit?" she asked during one session. Nathan thought for a moment. "Like I'm home. Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. English feels new, like wearing clothes that don't quite fit. But Sanskrit feels like me. Do you want to be Arjun again? I can't be Arjun again. Arjun is gone. His life ended. I'm Nathan now. But I remember being Arjun. And I think maybe I'm supposed to remember. Maybe that's why this is happening." Dr. Sharma had similar conversations with Nathan. She saw how he struggled to integrate these 2 parts of himself. The child he was now, the scholar he remembered being. She made a suggestion. "Perhaps you could use what you remember. Perhaps you could teach others what Arjun knew." Nathan's eyes lit up. "Could I? Why not? You have knowledge that very few people possess. Knowledge that's valuable. beautiful, worth preserving. So Nathan began, in his own small way, to teach. Dr. Sharma brought graduate students to meet him, young scholars studying Sanskrit who were struggling with complex texts. Nathan would sit with them, this small child dwarfed by the adults around him, and help them understand passages that had confused them. He would explain concepts with clarity and patience, drawing on understanding that seemed to come from a lifetime of study. The graduate students were initially skeptical, reluctant to be taught by a 6-year-old. But Nathan's knowledge was undeniable. His explanations were clear. His insights were profound. One student, Maria, came to Dr. Sharma after a session with Nathan. "I've been studying Sanskrit for 5 years," she said. "I've worked with the best professors, but in 30 minutes with Nathan, I understood something I've been struggling with for months. It's like he doesn't just know the language. He lives in it." Nathan thrived in these sessions. He was happiest when discussing texts, debating interpretations, sharing the knowledge that filled his mind. It gave purpose to memories that might otherwise have felt like a burden. But there were also moments of sadness, times when Nathan would grow quiet, withdrawn. When asked what was wrong, he would say things like, "I miss the mountains," or "I wish I could see Master Devendra again," or simply, "I don't belong here." Jennifer struggled with these moments. How do you comfort a child grieving for a life he lived centuries ago? How do you help him feel at home in a world that must seem so different from what he remembers? Dr. Richardson provided guidance. Many children with past life memories go through this. They feel displaced, caught between two worlds. But as they grow older, as they become more engaged with their current life, the past life memories typically fade. They become less immediate, less emotionally charged. "Will Nathan forget?" Jennifer asked. "Perhaps not entirely, but he'll likely integrate the memories in a way that allows him to be more fully Nathan, to live in the present while carrying wisdom from the past." There was one more thing Dr. Sharma wanted to try, a way to perhaps give Nathan some closure, some connection to the life he remembered. She arranged a video call with monks from a monastery in Nepal. Not the same monastery Nathan described, but one that followed similar traditions, studied similar texts. The monks appeared on screen in their traditional robes, sitting in a room filled with ancient texts and religious artifacts. Dr. Sharma explained Nathan's case briefly in English, then asked if the monks would speak with him in Sanskrit. The eldest monk, a man in his 70s with a gentle, weathered face, addressed Nathan directly in classical Sanskrit. Nathan responded immediately, fluidly. The conversation flowed between them. Questions about texts, about practices, about the daily life of monasteries, about meditation and study, and the pursuit of wisdom. The elderly monk's expression changed as they spoke. He asked Nathan about specific commentaries on ancient texts. Nathan answered with detail and nuance that impressed even the monk. After 20 minutes, the monk paused, spoke directly to Dr. Sharma in English. "This child has been a scholar, not in this life, but in another. His knowledge is not learned. It is remembered. This is rare, very rare, but it happens. Consciousness carries wisdom across lifetimes." He turned back to Nathan, speaking in Sanskrit again. Dr. Sharma translated later what he said. "You have been given a gift, the gift of remembering. Use it wisely. Share what you know. Help others understand. This is your dharma in this life, to be a bridge between past and present, between ancient wisdom and the modern world." Nathan listened, tears streaming down his face. When the monk finished, Nathan pressed his hands together in the traditional gesture of respect and said quietly in Sanskrit, "Thank you, revered teacher. I will try to honor what I remember." After the call ended, Nathan sat in silence for a long time. Then he looked at his mother and said, "I think I understand now. I'm Nathan, but I carry Arjun inside me, and that's okay. That's what I'm supposed to do." Today, Nathan is 9 years old. He still speaks Sanskrit, though less frequently than before. Dr. Sharma continues to work with him, documenting his knowledge, exploring the depths of his understanding. But Nathan is also, increasingly, just Nathan. A boy who plays soccer, watches movies, argues with his sister, dreams of becoming a scientist or maybe a teacher. The memories of being Arjun haven't disappeared, but they've settled into something more manageable, like a book he once read that stays with him, informing who he is without overwhelming his present identity. He still meditates sometimes, still finds comfort in the ancient syllables of Sanskrit, still discusses philosophical texts with a depth that amazes everyone who encounters him. But he also laughs at jokes, plays video games, eats pizza, and worries about spelling tests. He has found a way to be both Nathan and Arjun, present and past. The child he is and the scholar he was. Dr. Richardson's research file on Nathan remains one of the most extraordinary cases she has documented. A child speaking a dead language fluently, possessing knowledge that cannot be explained through any conventional means, describing a life that makes sense only if consciousness can carry memory across time. The skeptics offer explanations. Perhaps Nathan was exposed to Sanskrit through some unusual circumstance no one can trace. Perhaps this is a form of cryptomnesia, where forgotten memories emerge as if new. Perhaps there's a neurological explanation not yet understood. These are reasonable possibilities. Science demands we consider them, but they don't fully account for the specificity of Nathan's knowledge, the fluency of his speech, the depth of his understanding, the emotional authenticity of his memories, the way he describes a life with details that match historical records of monastic traditions from centuries past. Dr. Sharma has published papers on Nathan's case, presented at conferences, invited scrutiny and debate. The linguistic community remains divided. Some see it as evidence of something extraordinary. Others remain skeptical, searching for conventional explanations. What no one disputes is that Nathan can do what he does: speak Sanskrit, understand ancient texts, engage with philosophical concepts at a level that surpasses many scholars who have studied for years. The question is how, and why, and what it means. Perhaps consciousness is not confined to individual brains. Perhaps memory can be transmitted across lifetimes through mechanisms we don't yet understand. Perhaps identity is more fluid than we imagine, allowing someone like Nathan to carry echoes of Arjun within him. Or perhaps there are other explanations, ways that information can be accessed or knowledge can emerge that we haven't yet discovered. What remains is the mystery, and the reminder that human consciousness may be far stranger and more complex than our current theories allow. Nathan himself has thoughts on this. When asked recently what he thinks is happening, he said simply, "I think maybe consciousness doesn't die when the body dies. I think it continues. And sometimes it remembers. I don't know why, but I know I remember. And I know what I remember is real." The ancient Sanskrit texts Nathan knows so well speak of this: the continuity of consciousness, the eternal nature of the self. The idea that what we call death is simply transition, and that awareness persists beyond individual lifetimes. These are not just philosophical concepts to Nathan. They are lived experiences, memories that feel as real as yesterday, even though they come from centuries ago. In the words of the Bhagavad Gita, one of the texts Nathan can recite from memory, "The soul is never born and never dies. It is eternal, unchanging, beyond time." What we call birth and death are simply the soul taking new forms. Whether this is literally true remains an open question, but Nathan's existence suggests something profound: that memory might transcend individual lifetimes, that knowledge might persist beyond death, that consciousness might be far more mysterious than we dare to imagine. If this story touched you, if it made you question what you thought you knew about language, memory, and the transmission of knowledge across time, you're not alone. Every week, we explore another mystery, another child who knows what they shouldn't know, another case that challenges everything we understand about consciousness, learning, and the boundaries of human experience. Subscribe to Before This Life. Join thousands of truth seekers in this journey, because some questions are worth asking. Some mysteries deserve our wonder. What's your theory about Nathan's fluency in a dead language? How do you explain a 6-year-old understanding ancient text scholars spend decades studying? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's explore this together. This has been Before This Life. May it inspire you to remain curious, to question deeply, and to never stop wondering about the nature of consciousness, memory, and who we truly are. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, if it made you rethink what you know about memory and consciousness, you're not alone. Each week, we dive into another captivating mystery, another child, another remarkable memory that challenges our understanding of life, death, and the essence of the soul. Subscribe to Before This Life and join a community of truth seekers on this incredible journey. Some questions spark curiosity. Some mysteries invite us to wonder, and some stories deserve to be shared. What are your thoughts on these memories? Leave a comment below, and let's uncover the truth together.